Welcome to another episode of the Victory Podcast, driven by Audi. I'm your host, Keely Eure, joined by my co-host and former USC quarterback, Cody Kessler. Cody, we are back. Excited to be back previewing a game. I hope you had a great bye week, though. Bye weekend?
Yeah, I did. I tried to get away from football. Ended up watching nonstop football on Saturday and Sunday.
Me too.
It's tough, though, not having a USC game. So I was watching, but I was missing out a little bit. I wanted to see the Trojans play. But we're back this week. We got another game. First road game of the year, so I'm excited for this episode.
Very excited as well. I just want to give an apology. I know that the bye week episode came out late. That is definitely my fault. I was telling Cody before we started recording, I can either go, apparently, 100 miles per hour or 0 miles per hour. I think once I sensed a break, I was like, I really just don't want to start editing. So apologies. But the interesting thing is we got a ton of emoji entries this week, regardless, with very little turnaround time there. So thanks to everyone who listened and submitted their emojis.
I'll back you up on that, though. You do work very hard on game week, so you deserved a little bit of a break there. So nobody in the comments come after Keely for that one. But you still got it out. It was still a great episode. I'm glad we got to do a bye week episode. But it was tough, too, doing an episode knowing there's not a game coming up. But we had some fun stuff to talk about. If you haven't seen that episode, go back and watch it. We talked about some of the Trojans in the NFL, looked ahead to these next 9 games of schedule-wise. But it's kind of interesting doing a preview, I guess, or a bye week episode without a game to preview. But now we're back. We got ASU this week, and I'm excited.
Me too. Before we jump into it, a couple reminders. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. We are simulcasting on the USC Athletics YouTube channel. If you want to go above and beyond, please leave a review on your podcasting app. It helps the show grow, and we greatly appreciate everyone who's done that so far. Also, if you ever want to get your voice heard or have a question for our wonderful analysts, you can either tweet or send a question via the Instagram box that we put out every week before we record, actually twice a week because we record on Wednesdays and Sundays. Our socials are Victory Pod USC, so you can find us there. And like I said, our in-season schedule is recording a recap episode with Dion Bailey on Sundays, and then Cody and we preview the game on Wednesdays. Now, a PSA, and I'm putting this at the start of the episode in case you don't make it to the end, we will not have a recap episode on Sunday, because it will be my fault. If you know me at all, and if you've been following my career, you know that I do have one true love besides college football, and it is Beyonce. And I will be seeing her in Houston, performing in her own hometown. I'm going from ASU to Houston. I will be so tired, but I'm so excited to see it. It's a bucket list of mine. So I thought I could maybe squeeze in a podcast there, Cody, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to treat myself and just, really relax and enjoy the concert.
I could tell you're really upset about missing the podcast episode on Sunday. I can't.
Do I not look?
No, not at all. I could tell you were, and we talked about that before we started recording too. I could tell when you were talking about it right there, excited to announce why you were missing. So
I'm so excited.
For a good reason. You're going to see Beyonce. I know how much you enjoy watching Beyonce.
I love her so much.
Have you ever seen her live before? Or is this your first time?
Many times.
Oh.
But I know you're like, this is a
okay. Well, maybe so maybe not cut you as much
hometown.
slack for missing
her
the podcast.
Her hometown is Houston, and she goes all out for Houston. I've always wanted to go, so I finally made the decision. I'm going to Houston in the middle of football season. So that's how you know I love her, because I don't do anything.
That's dedication right there.
I know. Thank you. Exactly. Alrighty, Cody. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of the show, we got to talk about some news that came out this week. We got a kickoff time for USC Colorado.
Oh.
It is an early one. So USC got the big noon kickoff game. Now, here's the interesting part. So according to Pac-12 rules, if you are the opponent, the away game opponent, and the proposed kickoff time is before 11 a.m. local time, the opposing coach has to okay that kickoff time.
Yeah.
Which means Lincoln Riley was presented, hey, you will be playing 10 a.m. local time at Boulder on Big Noon Kickoff. Is this something that you want to sign off on? And clearly he said, let's go for it.
Which is 9 a.m. our local time on the West Coast. But I mean, that's just, hey, it is what it is. Anytime, any place, anywhere, right? That's the motto. You've got to be able to show up and play. But it's going to be interesting because we've played all afternoon games so far to have that quick of a turnaround, and you lose an hour going and playing in Colorado. So it's interesting to say the least, but I do love that it's going to be Big Noon Kickoff. I love that we're going to get a lot more exposure on the East Coast, especially for recruit-wise, going to the Big Ten next year. A lot of those recruits will get to watch this game. It's not going to be 11 p.m. on the East Coast by kickoff time or whatever it may be, and then 1 a.m. by halftime. So I'm excited about that, but it's gonna be an early one. You're going to that game? Obviously, you go to all the away games. That's going to be a quick
full
turnaround.
Intern crew too. So we'll be,
because we go we're 7:30 this week. Right, at ASU, and then turn around. Then we go 9 a.m. our time next week. So it'll be interesting, but nonetheless, hey, it'll be a fun game. It'll be a great atmosphere. Hopefully, the Colorado fans show out like they have the last couple home games. And
have you heard about what the tickets look like right now
for our game?
For Colorado USC?
No.
I think the get-in price right now is like $400.
Wow.
Isn't that
like
insane?
the cheapest ticket is $400?
Yes.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
I mean, it's just, and Colorado's the most exciting team in football right now. Whether, how far they can take it, sure. It's
we'll see.
still waiting to see. And they play Oregon this week. That's going to be a huge test for them. We're going to learn a lot more about this Colorado team this week against Oregon. And then obviously next week when we play them, then we have the first couple of weeks. But at the end of the day, the hype is there. The excitement's there. Pac-12 football is very exciting right now.
Which is so fun and bittersweet.
It's the last year. Yeah, again, it's the last year that this conference is going to be around. But what better way to go out with a bang than, when having a lot of teams that are ranked. I think there's almost 6-7 teams now in the top 25 in the Pac-12, so it's crazy. But we're getting a little far ahead. We still got to talk about Arizona State.
Very
it's tough.
true.
It's tough not to look ahead though.
I know.
At that game, and then obviously the next 9 games or 8 games after that because of how exciting this schedule is going to be. But nonetheless, we got to stay focused 1 week at a time and focus on beating the Sun Devils this week.
I know, but I'm going to contradict you right here because I have 2 more questions about that Colorado kickoff.
Okay.
One, as a player, how do you get ready for that early of a game? And I've gotten questions about this on Twitter because USC did practice super early for fall camp. They were at like 6 a.m. practices.
Yeah.
So they have done football activities this early, and they usually do strength and conditioning early, but they have had afternoon practices during the season. So I just don't know how you adjust to that.
It's tough. And I will say this. So we do get to talk about this because we're not playing in the game this week. So we can look a little bit ahead.
Sure,
but,
of course.
It is tough. I don't know. I think the earliest game I ever played in college was Notre Dame, which was a noon kickoff here. I think it was a 12 p.m. kickoff. Yeah, that was the earliest I ever played. And I don't think I played earlier than a noon kickoff.
Okay.
I know for sure I didn't play in a 9 a.m. kickoff on the West Coast time. No, Vegas Bowl was... I feel like that was an afternoon game. Okay. No, that was an earlier game, but I don't think it was 9 or 10 a.m. local time kickoff. But that's NFL, though. You do have East Coast plays at 1, West Coast, they do have those 10 a.m. games, but they normally put the West Coast games later in the day.
Yeah.
So it's 1 p.m. local time there. But I don't think I can probably confidently say I've never played in a game that's kicked off at 9 a.m. local time and then obviously 10 a.m. in Colorado. But it's going to be interesting. I don't know. It's going to be, it's what, 4 or 5? Because you normally get to the stadium a good 3 hours before kick. So that'll be 7 a.m. So it's going to be probably a 4 or 5 a.m. wake up call.
Yeah.
Get breakfast, try to do your walkthroughs before you get to the stadium. And then it's a quick turnaround and it's go time. So
I know.
It'll be crazy. I'm not a huge fan of that kickoff, but obviously Lincoln Riley's okay with it. And if he's okay with it, then obviously the team's going to show up and play how they should be. And it'll be a fun one to watch.
Well, in some ways, it's a preview of USC going to the Big Ten. I'm sure they're going to have early kickoffs as well.
And that's a great point. I did see that. Someone mentioned that on Twitter was you can complain all you want, but get used to it because when you go to the Big Ten, there's going to be a ton of big noon kickoff games.
Yeah.
But I will say this, and I wouldn't be surprised, and we did this against Notre Dame or any time we would play East Coast games, is you'll normally go a day before. Yeah. Normally you go on, or I say day before when you normally go. So you normally go on Friday to away games. Like when we go to Arizona State this week, the team will leave Friday, have a night, in the hotel, stay there, wake up, and then have all day to get adjusted to the time change or whatever it may be. But when you go to those East Coast games and it goes from maybe a 1 hour, 2 hour time change to 3 hours, we would go on Thursdays, give us 2 days to get used to that, and then get ready for kickoff. So that way you're not going Friday, having a little bit of jet lag behind on the time frame, and then you go try to have a kickoff, which is at 8 p.m., but it's still 5 p.m. It's just a weird kind of dynamic. But so I will expect, obviously, and then if we have 2 away games and they're both big noon kickoffs back to back, are we just going to stay out there? Are we going to come back? How's that going to work?
Questions I have no idea.
I know we're getting way far ahead, but
I'm actually really curious. If you have a certain way you're going to watch a 9 a.m. kick, tweet at us. I'm curious, the fans, what you're going to do, because you have to have a strategy for that, really.
Yeah, and I don't watching sure, but I want to know who's going to wake up and tailgate for a 9 a.m. football game. That's the true dedicated Trojan fans right there, but. Yeah, it'll be crazy nonetheless, but get used to it. This is a little taste of the future, and it's going to happen a lot when we go to the Big Ten.
Alrighty, before we jump into it, Cody, just want to give a thanks to Audi. Performance is more exhilarating on a real road. Introducing the Audi Q5. Visit your SoCal Audi dealers, proud sponsors of the USC Trojans. Also thanks to Ralph's. Everyone wins when it comes to saving big, because when you order online through the Ralph's app, you get the same great prices, deals, and rewards on pickup or delivery that you do in store. So no matter how you shop, you always save big at Ralph's. Ralph's, fresh for everyone. Fight on.
Spot on. That was good. That was first take.
Thank you.
Only take. That was good.
Appreciate it. Now to this ASU preview.
Yeah.
Very curious your thoughts, Cody. One, because this is a struggling ASU team, struggling with injuries and whatnot, but also because, and we didn't really talk about this, but something you had recognized that I didn't coming into this episode was that ASU's defensive coordinator is Washington State's former defensive coordinator. And that was a game, if you look at 2022, where Caleb Williams kind of had a uncharacteristic game. They had to lean on Travis Dye a lot. So I'm curious what that looks like when you look at ASU's defense. But I know you like to start with head coaches. I don't want to mess you up in you're a man of order. Yeah. So go ahead, take us through what are we looking at with ASU's coaches. That
was talking coaches right there. So that was a good segue, a good lead into right there. But we'll start with the head coach, Kenny Dillingham. Obviously his first season here at ASU. Crazy stat though, or crazy fact, he's only 32 years old.
Young.
So very young head coach.
2 years older than you?
2 years older than me. I'm 30, so 2 years older than me. And this is his first time ever as a head coach, but has been a very successful offensive coordinator. A little bit of his history is that he started coaching actually at Chaparral High School after tearing his ACL. Right? Yeah, so he's from Arizona, tore his ACL his senior year, and then went straight into coaching, kind of stopped his playing career, went into coaching. He was actually an offensive assistant coach at Arizona State in 2014 and 2015, so when I was there playing against him.
Oh, okay.
And then bounced around after that. In 2018 was the Memphis offensive coordinator, then went to Auburn as an offensive coordinator in 2019. 2021 to 2022 was an offensive coordinator at Florida State, and then most recently was obviously the offensive coordinator at Oregon last year. Had the 6th ranked offense in all of college football at Oregon last year. So very young head coach, but a lot of experience and a lot of offensive coordinating jobs as well at some big-time programs. So he's got a lot of experience. Although he is a first-time head coach, he has been coaching at the Power 5 level for a long time.
Seems like a fast rise.
Yeah, it really is. And only at 32 years old. His first job as an offensive coordinator was at 21 years old on the varsity football team at his old high school. So he kind of skyrocketed through the ranks, and obviously in 2018 got his first OC job. So doing a lot of things well. And people have said that, reading some of these quotes about him, reading about Coach Dillingham. And he's very good at what he does, obviously. You're going to take some of those licks a little bit your first year as a head coach, learning your way about it. But obviously he's going to have a great coaching career, in my opinion, as he goes forward. Now, staying on the offensive side of the ball, their offense coordinator is Bo Baldwin. This is also his first season at Arizona State. From 2020 to 2022, most recently, he was a Cal Poly head coach. Does have some experience in the Pac-12, though. From 2017 to 2019, he was Cal's assistant head coach as well as their offensive coordinator, so he has played the Trojans before. But from 2008 to 2016, he was the head coach at Eastern Washington, actually won the Division I FCS National Championship in 2010. So another coach with a lot of experience, both as a head coach and as a play caller. And then going to the defensive side of the ball, who we just spoke about, is defensive coordinator Brian Ward. This is his first season at Arizona State. Most recently, he was at Washington State last year in 2022. We'll dive into that a little bit when we talk about Arizona State's defense. But before that, was a DC at Nevada and then a DC at Syracuse from 2016 to 2019. So a lot of experience on this coaching staff for a head coach who doesn't have a lot as a head coach. So it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic works.
Well, that's my question, Cody. Like you just mentioned the acumen for Coach Dillingham as an offensive coordinator. Is this something where, because we see Lincoln Riley do it, your offensive coordinator and head coach. Is this something where it's your first time as a head coach, you want someone to just take that OC role and kind of take that over so you can juggle everything you need to juggle as a first-time head coach? Like, I'm just curious why. And part of the reason I ask this is because it came out this week that Dillingham announced that he will take over, basically calling the plays, being a co-OC, if you will.
Yeah.
And he said that, but Bo Baldwin, he said, we're on the same page, but I'm going to take over calling plays, so...
Well, when you sent me that, I didn't believe. I didn't even bother to look at it, because you do have head coaches that call plays like Lincoln Riley, but you have coaches that have the title of assistant head coach or offensive coordinator, pass game coordinator, like we do here with Coach Hinson and Coach Simmons, who have those titles, who absolutely help in the game plan. But that the head coach is calling plays. So when Coach Dillingham mentioned, I'm going to take over play calling from Coach Baldwin, that blew my mind. I thought he was already doing that. I just thought Bo Baldwin had the title as offensive coordinator because he may run those meetings a little bit or get in the offensive unit meetings and talk to them and explain through things. But obviously, Coach Dillingham has the final say on game day. But the fact that he hasn't been calling plays, I think, is a big part of that, is being a first-time head coach. I don't want to just be a head coach who's an offensive coordinator who spends all my time with the offense, right? I've got to spend time with the defense. I've got to spend time with special teams. I've got to work with some of the younger guys on both sides of the ball as well. But yeah, I was actually shocked that he hadn't been calling plays this entire time. And if he is taking over now, if they're going to kind of do it as, I guess, by committee calling plays, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't do it for the rest of the year.
Interesting. Now, let's just go into ASU's offense.
Yeah.
So far, I mean, if a head coach is taking over offensive calling duties, that means it hasn't been going well. Now, if you look at ASU's last game this past Saturday, shut out against Fresno State 29-0, and it was their first time being shut out since 2008 when they played number 8 USC, and it was their first time being shut out at home since 1988 versus number 2 USC. So not a great look for Arizona State. They went through many quarterbacks on Saturday, and their offensive line is just decimated with injuries. So not to preview your preview, Cody, but doesn't seem like the offense is having a good time right now for the Sun Devils.
Yeah, and there was eight turnovers in that game as well. We'll get into that in a second. But just offensive stat-wise overall, and they looked decent on offense. They had Jaden Rashada, who was their starter. True freshman, came in, was playing well the first 2 games, has an injury, undisclosed injury, which was interesting. They were kind of trying to get that out of Coach Dillingham, what's going on, but he did say he'll be out 4 to 6 weeks, so obviously won't be playing against us next week. But overall, as an offense through the first 3 games, despite how bad they played against Fresno State, they were still struggling, right? The first 2 games were okay, but overall total points, only 13 points per game. Now this shutout plays a factor in that, but that's 130th in college football. Total yards, 292 yards per game, 124th in college football. Total pass yards per game, 197, which is 99th. And then total rushing yards per game is 95, which is 119th. And again, this is out of 130 teams. So they are very low on the offensive side of the ball. On third down conversion, 34%, very low. And then fourth down conversion is only 28%. So overall, just an offense that is struggling. But you have to admit that there are injuries, right? They do. And again, they did show a little bit of promise in the first game. Yes, it was a lesser opponent. Their second game against Oklahoma State, they played well. They had a chance to win that game, but then these injuries take over. They lose their starting quarterback. Last week against Fresno State was a very tough one to watch, and they just could never get anything going on the offensive side of the ball.
Now, as far as just going into quarterback play, it sounds like they might have more health this week than they did last week. It sounds like quarterback Drew Pyne, which is their backup quarterback, who's now been elevated to, I guess, starting quarterback, will be playing against USC. That's what we think, but defensive coordinator Alex Grinch said you basically treat this game like a week 0 game in the sense that you don't really know who you're going to play. You don't have a lot of tape. You're just going to make sure you prepare your defense how you normally do. And if Drew Pyne sounds familiar, USC fans, there's a reason why, and you can take it away, Cody.
Yeah, Drew Pyne, and that's a great point, too, what Coach Grinch made, right? They're treating it as a week 0 game when you're going against a team that you don't know, who may have quarterback controversy. You don't know who the starter is going to be. You don't want, and you can game plan for both, but if you spend time game planning, and they had 3 guys that played. Now, if you game plan for all 3 quarterbacks, you're just going to waste a lot of time that week. I love that Coach Grinch said, hey, we're just going to game plan like it's week 0. Expect to see both of them. We'll kind of stick to what we're going to do. If we need to make adjustments when the time comes or whoever is out there, then we will. But yeah, going back, Drew Pyne obviously transferred from Notre Dame, played well against us last year, had over 300 yards passing, a couple touchdowns through the air. Not the same story last week against Fresno State. That was his first action of the year. He went 5 of 13, 52 yards, and 2 interceptions. He also lost 2 fumbles in the backfield. Now, that was a big part of that was the offensive line missing some assignments, some free rushers on him. But then he had the other backup come in, Jacob Conover, 6'1", 205 sophomore, was 6 of 16, 89 yards, and 2 interceptions. So also had another fumble. So it was a struggle at the quarterback position last week. And then you had a couple other guys that have shown some flashes this year. I guess you could call them key players, but it's still trying to figure out.
You're not bestowing red dot this week?
I have 2 red dots, and it's just because they're the leader in the stats category, but they really don't have playmakers that stick out, and they're still trying to figure out who's going to be healthy from week to week, injury-wise, where their rhythm's going to come from. Are they going to be a passing offense? Are they going to be a running offense? Coach Dillingham and Coach Baldwin obviously want to keep it like they did at Oregon. They want to keep that same fire that they had, but they just don't have the players that they had at Oregon, and that's going to take time. But their running back, Cameron Scatabo, he's 5'10", 210-pound junior, 36 carries, 148 yards, 2 touchdowns on the year. Their backup, another guy that will get some action, is DeCarlos Brooks, 21 carries, 90 yards. Their leading receiver is Xavier Gilroy, 6'3", 210-pound junior, 12 receptions, 140 yards. Their other receiver that has been their leader for their team, Elijah Badger, 6'2", 190, 9 receptions, 125 yards, and a touchdown. And then their tight end, Jalen think it's Conyers. Yeah. Sorry if I mispronounced that, but he's 6'4", 270. He's had 6 receptions and 68 yards. So they got a little bit taller, a little bit of height at the receiving core. Could be an advantage for them on Saturday, but overall, again, an offense that is struggling and trying to get back on track.
What I don't understand is how do you get shut out? Like, were they not in field goal territory at all?
Yeah, so it was turnovers. Turnovers was a huge factor. Again, they have 9 turnovers on the year, which is 127th in all of college football. They had 8 turnovers against Fresno State. So it was tough to watch. They had 5 interceptions, 3 fumbles. They did have one drive that they were first and goal from the 3, and it was one of the only times in the game too that they're a spread offense overall, but they went to a power 3 tight end look, tried to hammer it home, run the football, and then first down, shutout, second and goal, shutout, third and goal, shutout. So they had 4th and goal from the 1. Then they tried to play action. Drew Pyne ended up throwing it away on 4th down, which you can't do. Obviously, you got to try to force something there. If you throw a pick, fine, it's a touchback, and we'll move on. But, yeah, that was the only really scoring opportunity they had was a first and goal from the 3, and they ended up going 0 for 4 on that. But other than that, it was just anytime they got a little bit of momentum, it was an interception. It was a sack fumble. It was a running back getting hurt with a fumble. But it was giveaway after giveaway, and it was tough for them to get anything going. But, yeah, to go shut out against Fresno State, and nothing against Fresno State. Fresno State actually has a very good football team this year. They're playing well, and they were impressive to watch on film. But this Arizona State team struggled heavily, and a big part of that was the turnovers.
Now, Drew Pyne, has that first game at ASU under his belt. What do you expect from him if he is healthy to play on Saturday?
It's interesting because he played well again against us last year at Notre Dame. So he's capable of doing that, right? Now, whether it's the confidence, being a transfer, not fully comfortable with the offense,
sure,
not having the weapons, obviously you had at Notre Dame, which sure, that is a factor, but there were some flashes on the film against Fresno State where he would make a great throw on the run. Then he would make a good third down throw, a post route, put it perfectly over the corner and just before the safety, great throw there. So he had a couple plays where you saw flashes of, okay, this guy is a Division I college quarterback that has had success at Notre Dame for a reason. But whatever it was, last week he started trying to force throws. He was trying to make plays happen that weren't there. And I think it was a little bit of desperation, like, we're falling behind. We're down 14-0. Now it's 17-0. Now it's 24-0. I've got to make something happen. Forcing some throws, both him and
Conover?
I'm going to go with Conover, yeah. Both him and Conover, the backup, both started trying to force throws there. And it seemed like it was more of a desperation, not as much as it was just making simple mental mistakes. But nonetheless, this is a football team that will give the football away. And again, 8 turnovers against Fresno State. They will give you opportunities to make turnovers. I would like to see our secondary get some plays on the football, have some interceptions this week. Front 7, do a good job of collapsing the pocket and force them to make some of those 50-50 throws where we can go up and go get the football.
Now, given that Fresno State's defense shut them out, what expectations do you place on USC's defense?
Same. It really should be. And obviously if there's not a shutout, sure, if there are a couple points here and there, but I can't see Arizona State scoring more than 10 points. There should be no reason for that. It's, again, they do have athletes. This is a Pac-12 football team, but I say that with an asterisk. They struggle to get anything going. They have a ton of injuries. Their offensive line throughout the entire game against Fresno State struggled in pass protection. It seemed like there was a free rusher almost every other play. And it wasn't like Fresno State was doing crazy looks up front. It was a 4-down rush with a little twist between a tackle and an end, and they just struggled to get off of that, and they were trying to double-team one guy, leaving free rushers, having sack fumbles. It was tough football to watch, and as an offensive guy, hurt my heart a little bit, and I don't, I'm not taking away. Obviously, Coach Dillingham, in my opinion, will have a great future as a head coach. Obviously, he's already proven that as a play caller. It is just tough having your first year with not a lot of pieces in place, and again, having a lot of injuries. But yeah, I think Saturday, if not a shutout, I don't see them scoring more than double digits.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Now over to ASU's defense. I just have to give you props, Cody, because you called me at like 9:30 at night last night, and you were like, I'm calling you because this is something I know that I should do, but I don't want to do it. You're like, should I go back and watch USC's game against Washington State just to see what happened? And I was like, probably. Well, so no one doubts your dedication for this podcast.
Well, I knew I was going to do it regardless. Knowing me, I had to go back and look. But it was more so the fact of, not that I didn't want to, but is it going to be relevant because it's different personnel? Yes, it's the same defensive coordinator, but it's different personnel groupings. It's a different USC football team this year, obviously. And again, Arizona State doesn't have the same players that Washington State has right now. Washington State's playing very good football. Arizona State's obviously rebuilding, trying to get back to a good football team. But I thought, you know what? This is a game that Caleb struggled. Outside of Oregon State, this was his worst game from last year offensively through the air. This was one of our worst games in the entire or throughout the entire year.
Wow.
So I was like, let me go back and watch that. Let me understand what they did so well against us. So we can get into that. In this breakdown. But yes, I did go back and watch the Washington State game from a year ago.
Very proud of you. Now, what's interesting is that you mentioned ASU turned the ball over 8 times, but Fresno State only scored 29 points. So to me, that reflects that there was some good defense somewhere in there, but I don't know. You actually watched the game, Cody, so what did you see?
Yeah, they did a good job. I mean, and that's where they excel, in my opinion. They're better on defense than they are on offense. But yeah, they Arizona State, and most of those turnovers were inside their own red zone on their side of the 50. Their defense did a great job of, and 29 points does sound like a lot of points, but when you see that there were 8 turnovers, it should have been 60 or 70-0, right? Those should have been points off those turnovers, but Arizona State did such a great job, even when they turned the ball over and on their own side of the 50, inside the red zone. Their defense held them to field goals, forced field goals. I think they had 7 or 8 field goal attempts from Fresno State throughout that game. So it was a great job by their defense on those sudden changes, on those plays where you expect, all right, the momentum's completely to Fresno State. This is turnover 5, turnover 6, turnover all the way down for them to be able to hold strong and still continue to force field goals. They gave their offense a chance. They just couldn't get anything going, and they couldn't build off any of the momentum.
Interesting. Now, in that sense, what do you see overall from this defense?
Yeah, this is a good defense. I mean, they're ranking-wise, they're up there pretty high in a lot of the categories, but overall, as a defense, they do a great job of, and this it kind of correlates to the Washington State game from a year ago. Where they make their money is by confusing you up front, right? They will show you, they're a 4-down football team primarily. They will be a 4-down football team, but that'll change from a 4-down with double linebackers in the A gaps. Then they'll go both nose tackles in the N gaps, go double linebackers in the B gaps. They will bring 3 to a side and then walk 2 linebackers up to the left. They do a great job of forcing one-on-one blocks with the offensive line by trying to walk 5 or 6 guys up, forcing you to go man-to-man blocking and try to create these one-on-one advantages. Now, do they bring guys every single time? No. They will drop different guys out, but they do such a great job, especially on 3rd down, of giving you so many unique looks that it is tough to game plan against. Now, obviously, Coach Riley is one of the best play callers in all of college football, so they'll be ready to go. And they have a bye week, a little bit extra time to watch the Arizona State film from last week, to watch the Washington State game from last year, and realize, all right, this is where we struggle. This is where we can get better. This is the same defensive coordinator. What worked last year, he's absolutely going to use again this year, but now we have some extra time to prep for that. But yeah, overall, they do such a great job with their front 7, showing you different looks and covering well on the back end. That's where they create those advantages on the defensive side of the ball.
Now, you mentioned the stats and the rankings. Where do they rank, Cody? I know you're a stats guy.
Yeah, they do a good job. I mean, overall, total points allowed, 25 points per game, 84th in the entire country, so they could be a little better there. But total yards allowed, they're keeping their opponents under 300 yards, only 293 yards per game, which is 34th in all of college football. Total passing yards allowed, 203 yards per game, which is 56th in all of college football. Total rushing yards allowed, where they really excel, they're top 25 in the entire country, only allowing 89 yards per game, which is 23rd. They've been very good on 3rd down, only allowing a 43% conversion rate. 4th down, they've only had a couple attempts on them, so that's why it's at 100%. But overall, this is a good defense. You know, there's not really, and we'll get into the key players in a second, guys that stand out to where this guy's first team All Pac-12 or this guy's going to be All-American, but they do a great job by committee, by swarming to the football. Now, yes, they do give up opportunities on that side of the ball. They will leave some holes in their defense. They play zone coverage. They like to keep everything in front of you. They like to force you to go the long way, like they did last year when we played Washington State. They're not going to give up those big-time plays, but where they really excel is when you try to get to the run game. They do a great job of showing you these different looks, creating confusion and communication with the offensive line to where they do have free rushers and they do have free players in a gap. They can shut down the run game.
Now, talent-wise, what is ASU working with on defense?
Yeah, and like I said, it's kind of by committee. There's not a lot of individual players that stick out, but some of their leaders on the defense, safety Chris Edmonds, 21 tackles, which is a team high through 3 games, has 1 pass breakup. Their other safety, Shamari Simmons, 17 tackles, also has a sack. Their nickel linebacker, Jordan Clark, is playing very well on the defensive side of the ball, 16 tackles, 3 pass breakups. Their leading tackler as a linebacker is Tate Romney, 15 tackles. And then they have a couple guys that do a great job of getting after the quarterback, D lineman Prince Dorba. They also have a defensive lineman, BJ Green. Both have 2 sacks on the year. Dorba actually has 2.5. And another guy that stood out to me was their corner, Roe Torrance, 6'3", 200 pounds as a corner, has 11 tackles on the year. They love to bring him in pressure, also has 2 sacks as well. They're not afraid to blitz safeties. They're not afraid to blitz their corners and bring extra pressure. Again, that goes back to all these unique looks that they'll show you. But going to red dot guys and offensively, again, like I said, it was tough for me to really pick one, so I stayed away from that. But defensively, Jordan Clark, their nickel linebacker, feels like a guy that's on the field for both base, both nickel personnel. He does a lot of things well, moves around, covers your quick, speedy slot defenders. They will bring him in pressure as well. Not afraid to go in and tackle and does a great job in coverage. So that would be my red dot guy. But again, it's really by committee on defense. There's really not any guys that stand out that you have to worry about when you watch the film.
Now, just hearing the players you just talked about, for the defensive backs, there's a lot of tackles collectively for them.
Yeah. They're two leading tacklers. Their three leading tacklers are, again, both safeties, 21 tackles, 17 tackles, and then the nickel linebacker Jordan Clark, who we just spoke about, with 16 tackles. Their first linebacker on that list is Tate Romney with 15. A big part of that, though, in my opinion, is because they do play that quarters coverage, right? They will play cover 4 where the safeties are down low and involved in the run game. They will rotate, go one high, like to bring a safety in the box, like to shut down the run game. Again, 23rd in the entire country in rush defense, only allowing 89 yards per game. A big part of that is getting their safeties involved. But it also is only 3 games through the year. So we may see those numbers as it goes on. Because
that's fair.
15 tackles with Tate Romney as their leading tackler as a linebacker is only 6 away from Chris Edmonds, leader in safety. So we'll see that change as time goes on. But yeah, to start out, their secondary has been very involved in the run game. Now that does hurt them a little bit in the secondary. They give up some one-on-one plays when you do go play action, trying to keep those safeties involved in the run game. That's where we can take advantage of this defense. But overall, they do a great job of playing together as a unit and swarming the football.
Now, if you were Lincoln Riley, put on the head coach cap, how do you attack this defense?
Yeah, I think kind of what we've been doing. Let's stay balanced, right? Again, very good in run defense. That's what Stanford was a week ago, or now 2 weeks ago, I guess, after the bye, but we still went out there, ran the ball with Marshawn Lloyd, ran the ball with Austin Jones, used RPOs to our advantage, which Arizona State struggles with heavily, and they did against Fresno State. We've been so good this year.
That's all they did against Stanford.
It really is, and that's what we've been doing the first 3 games, and that's why I love Lincoln Riley's system so much. Is yes, he has these crazy looks, crazy formations, different personnel groupings, but he does the simple things to get his playmakers the football, which makes it impossible for a defense to really know what's going on throughout the entire game, right? So we'll come out there, run an RPO where Caleb can pull it and run. He can give it and let the running back go, or he can pull it and kick it out to Zachariah Branch, or kick it out to Lake McCree for a short walk-in touchdown. All these different options. As a defensive coordinator, you're pulling your hair out thinking, okay, we got to worry about the big shot, the big plays, Caleb running around, but it's the simple things like the RPOs that can really hurt you. And again, like I said, against Fresno State last week, they struggled with both tackling when the ball was kicked out in the flat after a pull, tackling the quarterback. The ends would crash down hard and lose responsibility on the edge, and the quarterback from Fresno State would pull it and take off and run. So Lincoln Riley is going to continue to do what we've been doing the first 3 weeks, but also going to look back, I think, in my opinion, look back at that Washington State game from a year ago and pull some things that worked well last year and apply that to this football game.
Well, that's what I'm so curious about. When you did your rewatch, how does this ASU defense compare? And obviously, it's a new school, new personnel, but what if you are that defensive coordinator? What are you taking from what you did well against USC?
Yeah, and call it how it is. I think Washington State's defense from a year ago, this year as well, is better than Arizona State this year, what they have personnel-wise. But the numbers, the stats don't lie from last year. We only had 30 points in the game. I say only, but we averaged 41 points per game.
Yeah.
We only had 369 yards. We averaged 506 yards per game on the season. This was the huge stat for me, was passing yards-wise. Caleb only had 188 yards through the air. He averaged 335 yards throughout the entire season. And the rush game last year is where we really excelled, 181 yards on the ground, and we averaged 171. But Caleb Williams' stats from last year, 15 of 29, only 51%. And again,
meaning
this is against
Washington State,
not Arizona State. We're talking Washington State here because they have the same defensive coordinator that Arizona State has this year. 15 of 29, 51%. Only 188 yards, did have 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, did have some big-time plays through the air, but just could not get in a rhythm. And this was his second lowest completion percentage and second lowest yardage throughout the entire year outside of the Oregon State game. But a player that really excelled last year against Washington State, a guy who's near and dear to our heart on the Victory Podcast, Travis Dye had a great game, 28 carries, 149 yards, 1 touchdown. When the pass game was struggling, we relied heavily on the ground game, and Travis Dye obviously picked that up and did a great job of getting that spark on offense.
So if you're USC, do you approach it the same way you did last year, or do you stick with what's been working so far this season?
And that's the main question, right, that when I was watching film last night was, yes, it's tough to make a correlation because of the players and the personnel groupings, but you do have the same defensive coordinator, and he's absolutely going to pull from that game a year ago, especially going against Caleb Williams, the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, the player that really gets this offense going, the best player in the entire country. How did we shut him down so well last year? And again, still 2 touchdowns, but how did we force him to struggle a little bit, especially in the second half? Because starting out, Caleb did a great job. The first 2 drives, I thought it was going to be a blowout, right? We went down. Caleb was 5 of 6, 85 yards, and a touchdown through the air after the first 2 drives. We're up 10-0, smooth sailing. They made some great adjustments. Again, a big part of that was rushing the quarterback, getting after Caleb. Now, he only had 1 sack on the day from Washington State, but our offensive line struggled a little bit with some of those twists, struggled a little bit with some of those unique looks that they do now at Arizona State as well, bringing different pressures, bringing different guys, overloading a side, bringing a corner blitz, bringing a safety pressure as well. That is going to be, in my opinion, where they're going to try to expose USC's offense this week. I do believe, though, that we have a better unit up front than we had a year ago, a more experienced unit. Caleb Williams is better than he was a year ago, so we should have no problem picking that up. And again, personnel plays a factor in that as well. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Do we attack the run game, where they're doing a great job of at Arizona State? Do we go out and try to be great in the pass game, where we struggled out a year ago against this defensive coordinator? I don't know, but I think Lincoln Riley's going to stay pretty consistent with what he's been doing, and that's been having a balanced offensive attack.
Now, I know we keep saying that like the schedule is escalating step by step, and it's definitely going to have a steep escalation, if you will, soon. But do you foresee this going how we've seen the last 3 games go?
Yeah. Short answer, yes.
Okay.
I mean, it's and again, I don't want to look too far ahead. I know everyone's excited for the Colorado game, rightfully so, but these games scare me, and we've talked about it a little bit off camera, because it's tough to pull positives from a game that you should win, and you should win by a lot, right? It's my main goal this game is, and we'll get to the keys game in a minute, but outside of that, my main goal this game is perform how we know we should perform. Let's have a runaway game in the first half. Let's get some more experience for the younger guys, for some of these freshmen, for some of these second and third stringers, especially on offense. Let's get some more reps for them, and let's get out of this game healthy, right? Let's be smart. Let's protect ourselves. Let's, if we don't need to do a little bit of extra here and there. If it's 4th down and there's maybe an extra play to be made, or it's 3rd and short and you're trying to get an extra yard, be smart, protect yourself. Yes, try to get that extra yard, but also understand that, hey, let's just stay within our game plan. We can win this football game playing the right way. We don't have to do a little bit extra that we maybe need against a Notre Dame, against a Washington, against an Oregon, and let's get out of this healthy and move on to the next week.
Yeah, I mean, your fellow analyst, Dion Bailey, tweeted pretty much the same thing. He said, basically, nothing can really good come out of this game. Like, you need to make sure health is the main priority.
Absolutely. And it's true, and it's you don't want to say that, and you don't want to look ahead, you don't want to have a trap game and all of that, but it is true. This is an Arizona State football program that is struggling, has a first-year head coach, a very inexperienced head coach who, again, I think will have a great coaching career as a head coach, but right now they have a ton of injuries. They don't have the personnel that they need to succeed. Let's go into this game, handle business, get the younger guys some reps, stay healthy, and get out of Tempe.
Well, in that sense, Cody, let's go to the USC Pharmacy prescription to win. We got to get into the keys to the game. First up, USC must pick up where it left off before its bye week.
Yeah, it's tough when you come off of, a 3-game stretch, having great momentum, great rhythm, especially the Stanford game. It felt like we really picked it up and played a complete football game as opposed to the first 2 games. But then you go into a bye week, you lose a little bit of that momentum. You're going to your first road game of the year as well. So it's very important to not treat this as a week 0 or a week 1 game. Let's understand, hey, we've already played 3 games. This is week 4 of the season for us. Let's pick up where we left off and hit the ground running and continue to keep that momentum, especially when the schedule is going to get tougher as the season goes on.
Now, I know the second key is simple, but it's true when you're playing a game like USC will on Saturday. Play clean football on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, when you're playing an Arizona State football team that's dealing with injuries, having to play some backups, this is a game that USC should win. You don't want to hurt yourself, right? And what I mean by that on the offensive side of the ball, let's eliminate turnovers. Let's eliminate penalties. We don't want to give Arizona State extra opportunities with the football. And then on the defensive side of the ball, let's get off the field, especially on 3rd down. No holding penalties, no PI penalties. Don't allow them to get extra drives, extra momentum. And if we can do that, then USC should win this football game.
Now, the third and final key to the game is something that head coach Lincoln Riley alluded to in his Tuesday press conference. The Trojans must lean on one another in their first road game of the year.
Yeah, USC has had the luxury of playing 3 home games in a row to start the season. Now this is your first real test, traveling, going on the road. A lot of question marks, especially for these freshman players who've never played an away game at the college level. And some of these newcomers, right? You're playing your first game with some of these transfer players, with some of these older guys as a unit on the road in Tempe, which is normally a hostile environment. Obviously, this team's struggling a little bit, so I don't know what the atmosphere will be like. But nonetheless, it's that us against the world type of feeling. You got to come out and play together and lean on one another and go out there and get the victory.
Alrighty, Cody, we got to get into questions. And spoiler alert, there's a lot of Colorado questions. So we may not be looking ahead, but I think our listeners are this week, which is fine. That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, hey, we don't put on any emphasis what the questions are. We just say what questions you want answered. So
true. And we also answered about pizza and other things last week.
Yeah, and hand size and okay.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Fair game.
Now, before we jump into questions, just want to give a special thanks to Audi. What if there was a portal to the future? Enter the fully electric Audi Q4 e-tron with an advanced touchscreen infotainment system. Audi, the future awaits. Also, thanks to Symbiotica. Take your health to the next level with Symbiotica. Their premium, easy-to-take supplements fuel your body with key vitamins and minerals to help you reach peak performance on and off the field. Elevate your health today by going to Symbiotica.com and use code FIGHTON for 15% off site-wide. Now we're going to start with a question from Eddie that I think is a little bit, it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but he said, with 6 offensive linemen down for ASU, at what point is it unsafe to play with a quarterback versus this USC front seven?
Yeah, that has been my biggest concern going into this game. And again, I'm USC football through and through. I wanted the Trojans to go out there and win, but I am a little concerned for the opposing quarterback, especially last week against Fresno State. Just play after play, it seemed like there was a free rusher, and Fresno State wasn't doing anything crazy to where they were creating all this confusion, and there was just simple twists, one-on-one pass rush, and you could tell that the offensive line was struggling, and Fresno State's defensive line is nowhere compared to the front seven that USC has. So I think it's going to be a pin your ears back, get after the quarterback, and hopefully we can see a lot of sacks and a lot of sacks fumbles this game.
Marco said, which of the wide receivers do you expect to have the most production versus ASU?
That's tough because you want to say a starter, but I don't know how long the starting unit will be in there. Now, yes, we have to go in there and take care of business and handle the game how we should and get a lead comfortable enough for Lincoln Riley to take out the starters. But I still think a younger guy like a Deuce Robinson, a Jacoby Lane, maybe some of those younger guys who have made an impact later on in the first couple games when we bring in Miller Moss and some of the other backups. But yeah, I'm leaning more towards a younger guy this week, maybe as opposed to a starter.
Now, in that same vein, we had a question from Eric who I just got to say, I love this question. He said, trying to get straight to the meat and potatoes of this question. You love when people just pick up the jokes.
That's Keely's coin phrase now. That's your...
You pointed it out, and now I can't unhear it that I always say it.
You still say it every time, though. I love it.
Now
awesome.
I have to.
Yeah.
I just coined it.
Yeah.
He says, do you think we should worry about Miller Moss if he comes in at the half again and doesn't look super impressive against another pretty bad defense? Now, take that with a grain of salt, but, people were not impressed with USC's second-team offense against Stanford.
Yeah, I mean, that's what these games are for, though, allowing those guys to get experience, guys that haven't played a ton of college football, guys that aren't starters right now. And
which means it's not going to be as smooth as what you see in the first half.
Exactly. And yes, Lincoln's going to want to see a great product, whether it's the starters all the way down to the walk-ons to the 4th, 5th, 6th stringers. You want to see that same product. You want to have that depth on your football team, but the play calling does change, right? You're not going out there. You're already up by 49, 50 points in the game. You're not going out there trying to put up another 50 in the second half. You're just running your plays that you ran in spring, that you ran in fall. And yes, you do want to see some production, but it's not one of those situations where it's the first unit going out there and they're struggling and the game's close. It's second half, some of those younger guys getting their first time, getting an opportunity to play, guys that don't play a whole lot with one another, and they're kind of learning how to play at a college football level. So I do understand the fall off a little bit there, but I think Miller Moss has played extremely well in the first 3 games, and I expect if we see him on Saturday to keep that up.
Now, given what we said about ASU's defense, do you foresee maybe a Nevada game or whatever game that Caleb played into the 3rd/4th quarter? Do you expect a longer leash for Caleb in that sense?
No, I don't. I mean, I think it's going to be one of those games. I think this is going to be similar to Stanford, in my opinion. I think it's going to be maybe by halftime, Caleb and the starters could be done. Maybe just Caleb, some of the other starters. I don't know if they'll take all the starters out by halftime. But if it's not halftime, maybe a drive or two into the 3rd quarter is my guess.
Yeah.
It could be sooner. I don't know if you really don't know what to expect with the leash that Lincoln Riley is going to give Caleb, especially going into these tougher games. He may want to leave him out there a little bit longer and get him some more experience, get him in more of a rhythm. He has yet to play into the 4th quarter this year.
Yeah, we have a question about that.
And he hasn't played a full game yet.
Which is wild.
Which is wild. And we're going into week 4 or game 4 for the Trojans. So will we see him a little bit longer? It's just, that's why it's tough as a head coach, that fine line between, all right, let's protect our players, but we also want to get them that rhythm of playing the full second half, of playing into the 3rd and the 4th quarter. So I don't know. We'll see what happens on Saturday.
It's a weird balance.
It is. It's very tough. And that's why they pay,
keeping everyone healthy.
Again, that's why they pay Lincoln to make those decisions, because that's hard as an outsider looking in deciding the right time to pull your starters and trying to get them that experience for the future.
Of course. Now, that question I mentioned is from Avebro. He said, do you think Caleb Williams only playing halves hurts his Heisman chances? Now, I just want to throw this out there. So he has the best QBR now through 3 games. USC has the most points per game out of FBS right now. And Williams has thrown 3 more touchdowns through 3 games this year, all while playing 3 fewer quarters than he did to begin the 2022 season. So if you compare 2022 to this season, he has more touchdowns with less quarters.
Yeah, and to answer that question, I don't think it's a factor because of how well he's performing. Now, if he was having games where we're blowing him out and the run game's going great and he's 10 of 12 for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns and then the game's over, yeah, that would hurt a little bit. But he's still putting up big-time performances, had multiple, I think 4 or 5 touchdown games, both through the air and on the ground. And it's only been 3 games, and he's, I think at 12 now, passing touchdowns through the air. So, yes, the stats are there. Would they be insane right now off the charts if he was playing the entire game? Yes, but I don't think it's going to hurt his chances. And I do think the Heisman voters, look back at that and realize, okay, this is what he did against these lesser opponents. And they also see the score knowing, okay, he didn't play the whole game.
Yeah.
But where you have those Heisman moments are against Notre Dame, are against Oregon, UCLA, Washington. That's when those Heisman moments happen. These other games, you kind of just want to stay right around the rest of the country when it comes to stats. But yeah, your big-time Heisman moments come in those bigger games against those harder opponents.
Yeah, he's doing what we expect of him right now.
What he should
and
be
then
doing.
You got to surge at the end.
Exactly.
And shouts to USC Sports Information Department. That's where I got that stat. But also, just so you guys know, Caleb Williams has played 133 snaps so far in 2023. But compared to other quarterbacks around the league, Bo Nix has played 167. Michael Penix has played 168. Sam Hartman, Notre Dame's quarterback, has played 209 snaps. And then Colorado's Sanders has played 239 snaps. So
and that Colorado Notre Dame are games that those quarterbacks played a lot more because Washington and Oregon have had games where Bo Nix and Michael Penix have been pulled second half, third or fourth quarter because they've been playing a little bit lesser opponents as well. But yeah, it's crazy the production that he's having with the amount of snaps that he's gotten this year.
Now, Corey had a question. He said O-line, but I'm going to assume he said D-line. He said our defensive line must be in sync with each other and the multiple quarterbacks that ASU could play. Is this true for ASU this week?
Yeah, I mean, it's going back to what we talked about earlier on the episode of when you have a chance of, or you saw 3 quarterbacks play last week and you have a chance of 2 playing this week, you don't really want to game plan and create too much confusion for your scheme, for your defensive players by game planning against what could be. You want to stick to a solid game plan, right? This is what we're going to do no matter who's back there. And there's not a lot of change between the quarterbacks that ASU has. They're all pretty similar outside of Jaden Rashada. I think in my opinion, he's a little bit better passer than the other 3. But for this week, it's stick to what you would do against either of these quarterbacks in a game plan. And then whoever is in there, we can make first quarter adjustments, halftime adjustments if they're doing something we weren't expecting. But overall, I don't think you try to make it too confusing for the defensive side of the ball and assume you're going to see 3 or 4 different quarterbacks.
In that same sense, Jason wanted to know, how did you personally handle playing against a team with a lot of injured players where you didn't really know who was going to suit up that week?
Yeah, it was tough, and obviously as a player, you're not huge in the game planning, especially in college. NFL, you have a little bit more say, but as a player, you're not huge in the game planning wise. But when I watched film as a player, I would get our game plan throughout the week, right? I'd watch it after we'd finish a game Saturday, right? Take Sunday off. Monday, I'd understand who our opponent is a little bit, watch a couple of their games. Then I would get the game plan from Kiffin or Sark, whoever it was. And then I would go back and watch individual players. Why are we running this play? Because we're attacking this coverage, and what players are normally there on that coverage. Now, as you watch and there's guys that are hurt, there's guys that are in there that haven't played a whole lot. Yeah, you might have to go back a little bit and watch some film to understand what they do individually. But overall, you're watching the type of plays they call, what coverages are calling against different formation, as opposed to who's actually going to be in there.
We got a question from Jay who said, has Mason Cobb made his way back to practice? We actually heard from him on Tuesday, which means he practiced. He said he feels healthy and ready to play against ASU. Defensive coordinator Alex Grinch said that the bye week did good stuff for USC's lingering injuries, especially at that inside linebacker position. Now, what's interesting is Joe had the question, do you put Mason Cobb back out there with the ones or continue with Davis and that rotation of Curtis and Tackett Curtis and Shane Lee, given the recent success?
In my opinion, I think you stay with Tackett, Rajon, and Shane Lee to start the game, and then you kind of implement Mason Cobb in there as the game goes on, just to get him back comfortable to playing. He's missed the last 2 games. Obviously, he's going to have a little bit off in his rhythm. Then we had a bye week, so there was no game this week. So realistically, he hasn't played in 3 weeks. So
yeah, wow.
I would say you would go with the same unit that's been out there, and then you slowly put Mason Cobb into that rotation, allow him to get his feet wet again, allow him to get back into the playing style of things before the rest of the schedule starts to pick up.
Cobb said it was the first time in his career that he's missed a game for injury, and he said like it was a huge learning curve to be a sideline player in that sense.
Yeah, and the mental reps, and we've talked about that on previous episodes before, the mental reps, seeing the football game from a different perspective, not actually being out there running around, hitting, tackling, focused on your own role, watching the game from the sideline when, it's an injury, not when the backups are in there or anything like that, but watching it when I should be out there right now, in my opinion, is a completely different perspective, and it gives you a different insight on what you're reading, understanding what all 11 guys are doing, as opposed to being out there and just worrying about what you're doing on the field.
No, that makes sense. Eric said, apart from Zachariah Branch, have you seen improvements in special teams play?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's tough. It's all overshadowed by how well Zachariah is playing. That's why I think we have one of the best special team units in the country. That's more so the return game. But when it comes to kickoff and punt, haven't seen any issues. I think Dennis Lynch has been perfect so far this year. So overall, there hasn't been any glaring issues that we had from last year. A couple things here and there, especially in coverage with kickoff and punt. But as of right now, it looks great to me. And obviously, Zachariah has added that extra spark in the return game. So hopefully we can keep that up.
And Riley has given credit to USC's blocking efforts. He said, yes, Zachariah is so electric, but you can't get that if you don't have the blocking efforts USC's had so far.
Yeah.
Lobo said, the game won't be close. Is it disrespectful to pull Caleb Williams in the second quarter? I see USC with 60 points.
That's what I just said, right? Is will he even make it to halftime? In my opinion, I don't know. It's just if we handle business, if we play how we should, and we've said this the whole episode, it's not to be disrespectful or anything. I'm not, knocking Arizona State. They're obviously going through rebuilding. They have injuries. They have issues going on right now. But yes, we should handle business. This game should be out of reach by the second quarter. Our starters, if Lincoln Riley wanted to, would have an opportunity to pull them by halftime, but it goes back to the question of, do you want to get them a little bit more playing time so they can get some rhythm going into these next couple of games, or do you pull them by the second quarter or halftime and let the younger guys continue to play? But the other factor with that is this is game 4 now, so if you do play some of those freshmen in this game, like we do expect.
That's a great point.
That's going to be 4 games, and if you want to redshirt some of those guys, they're not going to be able to play the rest of the year unless they're going to burn a redshirt.
Yeah, but do you foresee an opportunity in the rest of the schedule where they do get in?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the
maybe
only chance
Cal?
is, Cal, maybe Arizona, depending on how they play us that game. But other than that, no. But that's where it comes into plays. If you do have an injury, do you play maybe an older vet who's a backup, or if he's competing with a freshman, do you put the freshman there and then you burn his red shirt and then that's gone? So who
Once
knows?
again,
we'll see. But again, they're going to have
coaches.
But they're going to have to play some freshmen this week. I think this is going to be game 4 for some of those guys to have, hey, this is my last chance before I burn a red shirt. They're going to be out there. This game should be out of hand, and it'll just be interesting to see how Lincoln Riley and the coaching staff handle it.
100%. John said, given that ASU is decimated with injuries, how does USC get motivated in these situations? Now, I will give Lincoln Riley credit in the sense that I feel like, and this is going to sound like all coach speak, but the standard is the standard. Like, I don't feel like it's one of those emotional up and down type of teams where you have to gear up and then you're low, and you know what I mean? Like, it seems like there is just a steady expectation for this team.
It has to be, right? And I will say that's 100% true outside of maybe, and just as a player, maybe Notre Dame and maybe UCLA.
Sure, like take
you would feel that a little bit
away.
But I can confidently say there was never a game where we went into it thinking, hey, last week we played Notre Dame and it was skyrocket through the roof, and the next week we played an Arizona State team that's struggling, and thought, okay, guys, we're not as serious this week. It's okay. Let's take some time off. Let's slack at practice a little bit. The pregame speech isn't going to be as hyped up as it was a week. Like, that's not a thing. It's going to be the same week in and week out, right? You still feel it doesn't matter who your opponent is, who you're playing. You need to keep that same mindset. That's why you see teams that have some drop-off games that might have just beat a ranked opponent, and then the following week they struggle with an opponent that's not as good or not playing up to the expectations, because you take a week off. You have that hangover effect. You have a little bit of that letdown to where it's okay, we can just go through the fundamentals and this will be a cakewalk. No, you cannot treat it like that. It has to be the same mindset going in to every single game, whether it's a rivalry game, whether it's a top 10 opponent, or it's a team like ASU who's struggling and has a lot of injuries.
Now, we got many questions involving this topic. Rama said, how hard is it for players to focus on this game, which seems like it will be a blowout early, and to look ahead at Colorado? How do coaches keep players focused on one game at a time?
Yeah, it's you can't. It's tough because it's so true though. Like we can talk about it. I'm guilty of it myself, right? I feel like let's just get this game over with so we can play Colorado. So we can get all the excitement, the big noon kickoff, everything that's lying ahead of USC football. Not only just the Colorado game, but the other games down the line as well. I can't wait for the Washington game. I can't wait for Notre Dame. I can't wait for Oregon.
It's horrible because I'm so antsy.
I know, but you can't overlook these opponents. But my biggest thing with this is go into this game, treat it as if it is a big time game. That way, when the big time games come around, you don't have to feel like you have to search for an extra spark, an extra excitement level for those games. Treat every game, whether it's ASU, Cal, Notre Dame, let's treat them all the same. So you have that same pregame ritual, that same pregame routine, that same hype up, the locker room speech, all of that stays the same. So it's not different week in to week out, depending on who the opponent is.
Pete said, bring us back down to earth. I always think it's so funny when fans want like a slap in the face somehow. Yeah. He said, what has to get better to prevent this team from laying an egg? Do you remember the 2004 Rose Bowl? Matt Leinart and the boys scored all their points through the air. Does this team's running game travel?
Yeah, I hope so. I think Marshawn Lloyd has answered a lot of questions of who's going to be that 1-2 punch in the backfield alongside Austin Jones. I think the running game is going to continue to get better throughout the year. I think the offensive line is going to continue to get better throughout the year. Passing game, obviously, with Caleb Williams is no concern from me. Defensively, I think overall we've played well. I think there's things we need to clean up, but I think we played a complete game last week against Stanford, which was great to see going into the bye week. But Pete, I don't know. It's tough to bring you back down to earth. There's a lot to be excited about for this USC football team right now, and they're really firing on both sides of the football and special teams as well.
Yeah.
It's tough to find some flaws on this team. Yes, you can nitpick a little bit, and there's some areas where we can improve. Obviously, the run game from a week ago or 2 weeks ago against Stanford, I think, can get a little bit better. But overall, it feels like they're really putting it together at the right time going into this 9-game stretch.
Victor said, Cody, can you explain how the scout team's week works? How many days do they have to study an opponent's offense/defense before going against the first, second, third team in practice? And if you've been on a scout team, I would love to hear your experience.
Yeah, so I was scout team my first 2 years here at USC. Matt Barkley was still the starter. So we would go, start out the week. You would watch film, right? You would do normal meetings, team meetings, do all of that, do offensive meetings, game planning, because there was a chance of injury. There was a chance that you would have to play. But then when they would do maybe special teams or they would go offensive meetings or a secondary meeting, you would go with the rest of the scout team and go meet with some of the other coaches who would be in charge of normally it's like a GA or a QC who would be in charge of doing the scout pictures, doing the scout, what we're going to do this week, who they are. You'd watch a couple clips and learn, okay, I would watch, obviously, opposing quarterbacks. This is how Mariota was playing this week. This is how Jared Goff, whoever we were playing when I was still a scout team quarterback, this is how this guy's playing this week. I've got to mimic his game a little bit. I got to do some things that maybe are uncharacteristic of me, but I've got to do it so that our defense can get that look. And it was always the most terrifying thing in the world my first 2 years doing scout team, because who was in charge of the sheets of the cards on defensive scout team was Ed Ogeron. So he would be out there, and Coach O, love Coach O to death, one of my all-time favorite coaches, but he would get the scout team card, right? And I would try to stand out of the way so the O-linemen, the skill players could see it, and then I would look at it last. But Coach O was infamous for going, all right, everybody take a look, hold it up for like 1 second, put it back down, all right, let's go. And it was the worst thing to go, Coach, can I see that again real quick? Because he wanted you to play fast, especially when you were playing the Oregon, especially when you were playing UCLA's, the Brett Hundleys, guys that were the RPO quarterbacks playing up tempo. He didn't want to slow down practice so you could sit there and read a scout team card. But it was absolutely terrifying having to ask Coach O to show me that card again. But yeah, the unsung heroes of the season every single year are the scout team players. They go out there, the starters, man, they'll take some hits. They'll go out there and do 10, 15 plays in a row. I've seen guys at receiver that are just struggling to breathe by the end of practice, but they put everything on the line for these starters to give them the looks that they need so they can be successful on Saturday. So huge shout out to all my scout team players out there. But yeah, it was interesting going from scout team player to a starter and making that adjustment period.
It's funny because I feel like scout team is also kind of where the younger unsung players can kind of be quote unquote discovered, because I remember when Sam Darnold was on the scout team, and I remember this defensive starters were going, this guy is good. Yeah. They were like, could be the starter, and that's how that eventually happened. But that's when when you hear waves of guys on the scout team, that's when it's, some guys is definitely good.
And that was exactly my same thought. Was I remember being a senior And Sam started out obviously kind of learning and struggled a little bit with the offense because he's a freshman. You've got to learn checks, all of that. Scout team, you can just get out there and go play, right?
Yeah.
You see a card, there's no checks, there's no reading the defense, none of that.
Yeah.
We'll give you, it's literally drawing a play up on the sand like pick up football.
Yeah.
And you go out there and play and just try to make the defense better and show them some different looks. That's where Sam excelled, right? Going out there and just throwing the football, using his arm talent, having fun. And I remember there were a couple times where we would finish up offensive, the ones with the offense going against defensive scout, and we'd finish early, go watch some of the scout team offense. And I remember thinking to myself, this kid has a chance to start next year. Like he's a little bit better than I think people think he is because he struggled a little bit with the offense and learning a playbook and doing all that. But when he goes out there and does scout team, he can go out there and sling it and have some fun. This kid's going to be a little bit better than I think people are already thinking.
I forget that you guys overlapped. In my head, that was just separate.
We had 1 year. Yeah,
that's crazy.
He redshirted. He was a redshirt freshman my senior year. And then obviously after that I left and he and Max Brown competed. But I remember watching him on scout team a couple times and I was like, this kid has a chance to be really good.
You were like, okay.
Yeah. And then obviously he played up to those standards. But yeah, there's a lot of guys who make their way on scout team. A lot of guys who aren't starters at the college level who spend their entire career at scout team that go on to have NFL careers as well. So I know we're going off on scout team a lot here, but I got to give a huge shout. That's where I got my first kind of glimpse of what I can do at the college level is playing scout team and going against the TJ McDonalds, the Chris Galippos, the Nickel Robies, the good players, and having to force myself to get better going against them that prepared me for when I became the starter.
It feels like almost like the comparison is like the internship.
Yeah.
Like you can kind of
to the real job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a question from Chad who said, when does the team/staff leave and how long are they gone for road games? As a staffer, I can answer that question. It's the day before the game. So Friday, since you left, Cody, they haven't done a Thursday leave since then, even for Notre Dame.
Since I've left completely.
Since you've left. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that crazy?
So they go the day before for Notre Dame also?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So day before, you arrive to the buses are on the tarmac. You go to the bus. You go straight to the hotel. Team has meetings. As a staffer, I can do whatever I want on Friday nights. Yeah. And then we actually got a question from Jake who said, what is a typical game day like? Yeah. So Cody, you can take that one away. What does that look like for the team?
So game day, home game or away, you stay in a hotel. Either way, so they're both pretty similar. But home game, wake up. Or I'll say away game. So any day, game day, wake up. Normally, it depends on what time the game is. If it's an afternoon game, you have a wake-up call. If it's an earlier game, obviously the wake-up call is going to be a lot earlier, like it will next week against Colorado. But you wake up, go down, normally get breakfast. Kind of everyone gets in at their own time, eat your breakfast, and then after that, you go straight into a meeting, which is a glorified walkthrough, right? You have your walkthrough practice on the field. It'll be in the ballroom. They'll clear out all the tables.
Which is so funny.
All the chairs. We would normally use an actual football. Sometimes in the NFL, the Patriots, they'd use a lacrosse ball. You'd use simulated football, so you're kind of walking through the plays, but you would go starting offense versus a scout team, do a full scout team period, walking through the plays, go through all those, hey, anything we need to clean up from the week, any different looks that we maybe haven't gotten yet, let's go over those just so we can prepare for everything. So you finish that little 15, 20 play walkthrough, go back to your room, hang out for a little bit. This is assuming it's an afternoon game. I'm going off of Arizona State.
Sure.
Hang out a little bit, then you go back, have lunch, pregame meal. Then you may get one more walkthrough in. That's where you go through the first 15 with no scout team out there. We're walking through exactly what we're going to do. Then it's pregame meal, go to the bus, arrive at the stadium. Then you normally get there about 3.5, 2 hours early, depending on what bus you go on. I don't remember in college if they had two buses. NFL, you could go 4-hour bus or the 3-hour bus.
Oh, goodness.
So you could decide how early you wanted to get there for away games. Home games, you would travel by yourself. You'd drive yourself there.
Interesting.
But for college, you would ride on the bus as a team. Everybody would go there, and then you'd have, I think, 3 hours you'd arrive before kickoff.
2.5, yeah.
My least favorite thing, though, and that's the only positive I will say about an earlier game, my least favorite thing was waiting all day long, having to try to force myself to eat.
Yeah.
Also, because I hated eating when I was anxious or nervous or on game days. So when you had a 7:30 kickoff, nothing worse than like waiting the entire day because you just want to play. Yeah. Or at least just get to the stadium and start doing football activities. You just got to sit in your bed and watch other games and wait to play. So that was always tough.
I'm sure that would give me.
I just had I love those questions because it takes me like on a flashback. I go back to remembering like a specific memory of a game day or sitting there eating with Randall Telfer and Max Turk and some of the guys talking, getting ready for a game or getting on the bus, sitting next to some of the guys and walking to the stadium. So I love those questions.
As a collective group, when did you guys start to like lock in, go from like pregame waiting mode to like we are?
Yeah, the first walkthrough, the morning walkthrough, I can't remember if we did 1 or 2 walkthroughs. I think it was 2, but normally the first walkthrough was a little focused, but a little loose. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I missed something. So it was first morning was a walkthrough, normal walkthrough, going through the plays using football. The next one we'd call a clap session.
Okay.
So a clap session was what I would, we did this with Kiffin. We did a little bit. I don't think we continued it with Sark. We might have, but it was, we'd go through the plays. Everybody said this is right after we do pregame meal, go sit down, and it would be sitting in chairs. We sit down in chairs. I'd hold a football. Everyone would sit where they needed to be. Wide receivers would move, and it would be gun, deuce, right, 82, sluggo, or whatever it is. Gun, deuce, right, 82, sluggo, on one, ready? And I'd go, green, green, hut, and everybody clap. And then they'd pretend like what they're going to do, then go to the next. That was really kind of the lock-in.
Okay.
So I say all that to say that second walkthrough was when it's lock-in. Next thing we do is get on the bus and go to the stadium.
Got it.
After that, it's until the game's over, you're locked in.
Got it.
So
interesting.
Yeah.
Why were you in chairs?
They just called it a clap session. I don't know. That's what we did. They did it with Pete Carroll, and then they did it with they did it when I got there with Kiffin and Barkley, and then would do it. And then I took over, obviously, doing the clap sessions when I was a starter. So it was pretty cool. It would be the O-line would sit in chairs, the quarterbacks would sit in chairs, but the wide receivers would move based on formation. But we would all sit in a chair,
interesting.
call a play, and every time we called a play, and that was another nerve-wracking moment because there would be times we'd say, hey, gun deuce right 12, right, which was 12 zone or 12 dot or whatever, gun dot right 12, which is a run on 2. And you don't clap until the snap. So it would be green 80, hut, hut. And the second one we clap. And if you clapped on the first one or you weren't locked in or you messed up, it was death glares from everybody else.
Ooh.
Like, get out. And that was the most intense. I wish there's no way to replicate it, but just the feeling of being in the most intense meeting with your boss and all the higher ups.
Sure.
And you're getting ready to do a presentation or everyone's just looking
tested.
at you. Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those moments. But that was kind of the lock-in moment that right after the meal, the pregame meal, ended that second walkthrough right before you got to the bus.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Now
I could talk for hours about this, by the way.
It's
I love going down memory lane with all this stuff. Especially if you've never heard, like, whatever. You see us get out there for warm-ups and go to the field.
You have no idea what's happening.
You have no idea what's really happening.
Yeah.
If you've never played or played at the college level or played at the NFL level, what's happening from wake up in the hotel all the way up until you see us warming up on the field?
Because everything's scripted.
Oh,
like
everything.
Your day is 100%
from
planned.
when you get there on Friday, the day before the game, to when you travel, fly, everything is on a strict list until you get home.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
That Daddy Manny said, what was your most memorable ASU game, Cody?
Most memorable? Probably my senior year. I don't want to...
The Jail Mary?
No, that was my junior year. Thank you for bringing that up. I was going to say I don't want to bring that up.
Sorry.
No, my senior year, probably I threw 5 touchdowns. It was like
is this a humble
42.
Cody moment?
Yeah.
I was wondering what the hesitation was.
No. Junior year, absolutely not. That was the Jail Mary. That was...
Got it.
We were winning...
Yes. Sorry. I'm sorry.
That one hurts. You know what's the worst about that year, too, is we lost that Hail Mary and the last second touchdown, which was an offensive PI, against Utah. Outside of that, we were 11-2. So those 2 plays were us being a chance to play in the Pac-12 championship, going to the Rose Bowl that year. So that one hurts. But, yes, that Jail Mary was tough. But I'll say senior year, had 5 touchdowns. We had a really complete game. Adoree Jackson went off that game, played a lot on offense.
Okay.
Had a couple big punt returns.
He had the sword after the game.
Yeah, probably.
I remember that.
Which very
At
well deserved.
ASU.
Yeah. No, that was a fun game. It was cool too. It was a bounce back game because they had a lot of the same players from that year. Obviously, Jalen was gone, so we didn't have to worry about that. But they had a lot of the same players on the offensive side of the ball that beat us in our junior year, so we had to come back and kind of get a little revenge game our senior year at ASU.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I really triggered you with that one.
I'm glad you brought that up. I appreciate it.
I'm sorry. Apologies.
I'm not
to
the
everyone.
only one though. A lot of Trojan fans probably.
I know. I'm sorry for everyone who just cringed.
Yeah.
Tyler said, have either of you eaten at the Chuck Box on campus in Tempe, mesquite broiled burgers and chicken, or the Tijuana Torpedo Burger? It's been my pregame meal before every game at ASU for years and years. #fight on.
It sounds really good, but
it does.
As a player, I was always.
Oh yeah,
we had to eat what the meal plan was, or what was the hotel food.
You couldn't
pregame
wander.
meals. Yeah, we didn't really get to eat outside of the hotel, but you can check it out maybe if you have time.
I know. I want to say I will check it out, Tyler. It does sound good. I just know myself, and I probably will just watch football all day on Saturday and then get to the stadium. So maybe.
We'll take your word for it that it's really good.
Yes, we will take your word for it. Our final question comes from Alex, at least from my question portion, Cody. It comes from Alex. I think it's going off of the fact that last week in our bye-week episode, we talked about how you and I just don't watch any classic movies. He wanted to know, can you name any black and white movie? And have you ever seen a black and white movie?
I cannot.
For the listeners, Cody is cringing.
No, I'm not cringing. I'm sitting
You're
here.
like straining.
Yeah, like without trying to guess one and embarrass myself, I'm just going to say no. I cannot.
I can only thank my Gothic film class in college. I watched Nosferatu. It was a silent black and white film.
I feel like, now that you say that, I feel like I've seen like some noir films in like a film class I took here at USC.
Yes.
I could not name what they were.
Okay. But you have seen them.
Sure. Sure. Or I'm making this up. I can't remember.
Sure.
But yeah, no, off the top of my head, Alex, even if you gave me time to look it up or think about it, not even off the top of my head, I could probably not name one black and white film.
I mean, we were saying that we haven't seen like modern day movies, let alone black and white movies. So this was a shot in the dark.
You know what though? I've seen, I feel like I've got a little bit more credit there. You didn't know what the Green Mile was, or you haven't seen the Green Mile.
And someone said I need to see it.
You
and
do
that
need
I
to
need
see
to
the
thank you for recommending it.
It is just be ready.
Okay.
It'll mess you up a little bit.
Oh, I don't want that.
In a good way. It's I don't even know if it's in a good way. It's an insane film.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely worth watching though.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I didn't watch any movies over the bye week, in case anyone wanted to know.
Yeah, I didn't either, actually. I watched all football.
Yeah, same. Very predictable on my part. Alrighty, Cody, I have random.org pulled up, which means one thing.
Giveaway.
It's time to announce the emoji winners. And I just want to give a shout out to everyone. You still managed to do 61 entries with 2 days to do it. So props to everyone.
Yeah, because the episode came out Sunday
night. YouTube was Monday because YouTube was giving me some trouble.
Yeah, I saw that.
I know. I don't know.
I don't deal with any of the uploading, so that is all Keely.
It's frustrating. Also, I upload it and it takes like 2 hours to process through the podcasting publishing platform.
On like the actual audio? Okay.
Yeah. So there's I always have to factor in the delay too.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But no, huge shout there, but that's awesome. 61 entries, and it's not even a ticket week, it's a giveaway, or it's a apparel week. And
thank you, everybody.
But seeing all the new listeners on YouTube, even audio, Twitter, Instagram, all the comments, it's been so much fun, especially for me being a former player. You don't really get to interact with the fans a whole lot outside of maybe signing or taking a picture here and there, but then you're locked back into football. Now getting to do this side of things, my favorite part of every show is answering all Twitter questions, answering the Instagram questions, reading the comments after the podcast is released, seeing all the emojis. So thank you guys so much. It's been so much fun, and to see this show grow has been a blast.
So fun. Yeah. Really, really thank you to everyone.
All right, now they want us to stop talking though because
I know
they're
like,
for
shut
giveaways.
up, announce who won. 61 entries. I'm going to press generate.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Oh, I didn't. 32.
32. This is Twitter. That is Voting Rufus.
A name I recognize.
Voting Rufus.
Woo.
Let me get the...
Also, I've always wanted to ask, is Rufus related to Kim Possible at all in your name? You can answer offline.
Okay.
But that might be just like a millennial Gen Z
reference.
I was about to say,
you're showing your age right here, going back a little bit.
That's not that far back.
I do remember Kim
was a
Possible,
Disney
though.
cartoon, so that's my reference.
It was. Okay, so Voting Rufus, the name's actually just Rufus. Username is @VotingRufus04. I've seen this name a lot. They've been a constant listener. I know they've done a ton of emojis, so congratulations, Rufus. You are the first winner.
I love when the OGs, the day one supporters win. Okay, generating again.
Okay.
It's just not generating. Cody, you might recognize this number. Number 6.
Ooh, okay. 6. That is from Instagram. That is Dirk Clark.
Woo.
Dirk Clark. That is from Instagram. Let me go double check. And we've already checked, obviously, that they all follow, but I still do this anyways, just so there's no confusion.
Drives me insane every episode behind the scenes.
I know.
We have checked.
Yeah.
But you double check.
Tierney and Jada do all the checking, but I still go back and check. But full name Dirk Clark. Username is Dirk_818_Clark. So congratulations. I think he's a newer listener. I've seen recently some of it. So we've got a past listener, a new one. Yeah.
Nice. A blend of what's happening.
Yeah, either way, Dirk, Rufus, both of you guys, congratulations. Again, your options are going to be a USC hat, a short sleeve shirt, a long sleeve shirt, or a sweatshirt. We can either sign it or have it unsigned, completely up to you. And then I will give you a chance to listen to this episode and hear it for yourself. And then once the episode comes out, then I'll reach out and let you know that you are the winners. So congratulations.
Congrats. Now, you mentioned Jada and Tierney.
I did.
Which is a perfect segue because I'm going to have them choose the emojis this week. They are producing both of them in studio. So I thought I'd put them on the spot.
I love it too because it takes the pressure off of me picking emoji.
Both of us, yes.
Outside of doing the keys to the game, that segment, which sometimes I struggle with, the outtakes, picking an emoji is probably the hardest part for me on this entire show.
Which is so ridiculous.
I know. I just don't ever think because I do so much football.
You were an NFL quarterback.
I know. But
suck it up, Cody.
I like it. We got guest pickers this week.
Yes,
I'm not complaining.
They texted me their emojis.
Okay.
A strawberry and a white polar bear.
Okay, cool.
I love how unique the guest guest picks are for emojis.
Okay, cool. So a strawberry and a polar bear. And just to clarify, this week will also be an apparel giveaway because it's an away game at Colorado. The following week, though, will be tickets again for Arizona. And for a chance to win, if you're a new listener, the way it works is that you have to respond with the emojis we just picked, which is a strawberry and a polar bear. And if you respond on Twitter, you have to be following myself, Keely and the Victory Pod on Twitter. If you respond on Instagram, whether direct message, posting a comment on any of the profiles, you have to be following myself, Keely and the Victory Pod on Instagram as well. And then your name goes on the list, and then our
lovely interns.
Our random.org.
Oh, I thought you said compile them. Yes.
Yeah, our interns do compile them, but then random.org picks a winner and is completely randomized, and then you have a chance to win. And again, if you've won a giveaway either last week, this week, or this upcoming episode, this does not discount you from winning tickets for the home games as well. This was just, we had a little bit of a time of a bye week, 2 away games.
Yeah.
We wanted to continue the emoji giveaway, so we went back to apparel, but that will not discredit you from getting a chance to win for the tickets.
Alrighty. 2 more things left in this episode. First up, we got to do the Cody question segment.
Yep.
It's time for the 2-minute drill, Cody.
I
believe in you.
Favorite part of the show.
Okay. We also have to do game predictions.
We do have game predictions.
I'm nervous about that one, but continue.
I think
Alrighty,
you're winning
Cody.
right now, too.
We gotta tell you that.
Yeah. Okay.
It is time for you, Cody. I'm setting the timer.
I'm ready.
Go for it.
All right, here we go. First one is from BrianSC_BTS. Let's actually talk about Colorado because Sun Devil game isn't even a game. Our scout team could beat them.
Goodness.
Again, I mean, that's very strong words there. But yes, to that point, from, I guess, putting in my own words, obviously don't want to overlook anybody. Yes, everyone's excited for the Colorado game, but let's go out there, treat this as any other week, go out, perform, take care of business in Tempe, and then get back home. Allow some of these younger guys to get some more reps and get a chance to play. Let's get everybody healthy and then get back safe. The next one is from Tundra_ish43. What are some takeaways you want to see from the ASU game that can lead into the Colorado game? My biggest one is going back to the keys of the game. Let's just pick up where we left off, right? Let's not have a little bit of that hangover effect where you miss a week, come back, try to treat it like week 0 again or week 1. I'd like to pick up where we left off, that momentum we had going against Stanford. That way we can keep that going as we go on the road against Colorado the following week. The next one is from Joe Osorio. Cody question. Can you do a Zoom film session one time? Would love to be able to see what you see.
Wow.
That would be cool.
Join our Patreon. Just kidding, we don't have Patreon.
Or we could do like cameras where I kind of talk through what I'm watching and what I'm looking, like a little
we could do a special
extras video or something. Yeah.
Sure. Interesting. Okay.
That's a cool
if there's
point.
interest in that, let us know.
We're always open to ideas too.
I
know Joe just said it. If anybody else ever has any requests, anything else they want to see, we're completely open to that. Now, if we can do it or not, we'll see. But we love hearing the suggestions. The next one is from Dan Garcia87. What makes a good road roommate?
That's an excellent question.
I will say someone who doesn't snore.
100%.
Matt Barkley. Someone who...
Go listen to the Matt Barkley episode if you haven't.
And Matt, I'm saying that now because Matt, one of my best friends, he even told on himself on that episode. But Matt would give me extra pillows when we were on away games. And if he was snoring, he would say, hey, throw these at me. I know I snore. So I'd say not snoring. And then someone who goes to sleep on time. It was tough.
Oh.
And I've been, not to name anyone specifically, I've had plenty of roommates, college, NFL, bounced around to multiple teams in the NFL. Some guys would like to stay up late, stay on the phone.
Oh, no.
So
goodness.
No snoring, going to sleep early, and then obviously a good morning person because you wake up, that's the first person you talk to on game day in the morning.
Okay.
So as you get older, though, you get your own room.
That's nice.
So that was always nice. But then the next one is from CGEY. I think it's CGY. Do coaches treat trap games any different when it comes to preparation? I mean, they will never admit that. Maybe they do understand, hey, this game plan this week will be a little bit less than it normally is. But talking to a team, and from my own experience when you're playing, they try to treat every game the same. Again, there is a little bit of a highlight or a circle on the rivalry games with UCLA, with Notre Dame. But even when you play a lesser opponent, you want to treat that week in and week out the same so you don't have any of those let-ups throughout the season. The next one is from Naiku RNC16. Is the defensive coach's job on the line this year? I don't think so. Obviously, that was a big question from last year. People were wondering, hey, what's going on? How's it going to be this offseason? We need to see defensive improvement. We've absolutely seen that early on this season. Last week, it would be a great episode to go listen to. USC ranks in a lot of categories up near the top on the defensive side of the football. Coach Riley obviously came out as soon as the season ended and said, hey, Coach Grinch is our guy. I fully trust in him. As a Trojan fan, to hear Lincoln Riley say that, all Trojan fans would jump on board as well. So I would not see any issues with that this year, and they're off to a great start. The next one is from Chadster. What are your realistic expectations for the D this year against the better teams? TBD. It's still yet to be seen. Obviously, we haven't played a true test yet, an opponent. And that's no offense to the opponents that we've played, but our defense hasn't really been tested yet with some of these tougher opponents, so only time will tell. Can't wait to watch this week, but again, next week against Colorado, a team that has a lot of explosive players on the offensive side of the ball, will be a great test for this defense and will tell us a lot. The next one is from Josh Harden 1. Do you like our road unis or home unis better? Fight on from Nashville. I like the home unis. I'm a fan of the traditional Cardinal top, gold bottom. So I'm going home, but the whites are nice too, though.
I like both of them.
I do too. Yeah, it's tough to pick, but I'm going with the home. For that one. The next one's from Trojan Mom 06. Would you guys ever consider a halftime or a pregame podcast like
Your
for
mom
the call?
wants more content
She has
from
asked
us.
this question so many times. She wants us to do that. I just don't know how it's possible.
I mean, we could do like a halftime update if you were somehow on the field.
Yeah, but we'd have to. I mean, we wouldn't have all the equipment or the recorder and all that. I guess
We could do like a video.
a phone recording
No, we could do like a We
Or
could do,
video.
we could do like a video update.
have a camera. Yeah, TBD again. I don't know. We'll see.
Will Trojan Mom 6 pay us for our labor?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, she's been pushing for that one.
I know.
The next one is from Jonathan Thornton 949. Do you see Malachi Nelson getting playing time in the ASU game? I don't know. I mean, I would like to see him get a little bit more time this year. We've only saw one series. Yes, you want to get Miller those reps if the game's out of hand. Continue to build his confidence. Allow him to get that extra time in case he is called upon at some point this year. Hopefully not, but if there ever is an issue. But wouldn't mind seeing Malachi play a little bit in this ASU game. Again,
Yeah.
Hopefully the game's out of hand by halftime going into the third quarter. Let Miller get some of those reps and maybe give Malachi a series or two at the end. So would love to see that and help build his confidence. The next one is from M. Michael Steven. How much do coaches build contingency game plans given that ASU has injuries at QB? Great question. That's something we've alluded to earlier on the show. Is I think the game plan will be pretty similar no matter who's in there at quarterback. Yes, if you have a quarterback that's maybe a running quarterback as opposed to a quarterback that's a pocket passer, you'll see some changes. But with the quarterbacks that we expect to see on Saturday against Arizona State, pretty similar in what they bring to the game plan, what they can do on offense. So I would see pretty consistent with both quarterbacks, and then whoever's in there maybe make adjustments as the game goes on. The next one is from Trojan Dad 516. What day would you leave for an out-of-state game like Notre Dame? Normally, again, we would leave on Thursdays just because of the time change, the 3-hour change. Keely mentioned, though, that they don't do that anymore, right? They still leave the day before.
Not that I think.
It'll be interesting to see what Lincoln does, though.
Yeah.
Because they haven't really had a far away game yet since Coach Riley. Yeah, since Coach Riley's been here. So we'll see what happens when we go to South Bend this year. I think that's really the farthest game we have, right? But then the Big Ten will be a huge tell what they do travel-wise. But I wouldn't be surprised if we had some leaving on Wednesday or Thursdays.
Goodness, yeah.
Have a couple practice there, especially if it's back-to-back games. Now, school-wise, that's going to be interesting, but it'll be interesting to see how Coach Riley handles all that.
Yeah.
The next one is from Reg Bendheim. Is it possible for an opposing D to stop the GT counter, which is guard tackle counter, by shooting the pulling LM gaps? I'm not sure what LM gaps mean, but I'm assuming he's meaning when the guard tackle pull, you're leaving a void on the offensive line. You have to have either the center or the opposite guard down block, or have a tight end to that side who has to collapse down and block that opposing 3-tech or 5-tech defensive end. But yeah, I mean, that's a big part of that is when you have two pullers going away, you want to shoot those gaps, try to get upfield and create havoc in the backfield before the down block can get there. But that is a huge game planning thing. There would be times where we would have the right guard pulling. If there's a 3-tech on that side, which means he's on his outside shoulder, it's impossible for the center to get there in time to down block. So we would check to the opposite side to maybe the one shade. So it's an easier block for the center. It's all game plan. So if you see the look that you want, that's when you know you can run the guard tackle pulling. But if you have a look to where you understand, hey, our center can't get to that 3 technique or the 5 technique, we're not going to be able to run guard tackle pull, then you'll check out of it, save it for later when you get the look you want. That's a great question, though. The last one we have is from David L. Baker. Question for the podcast. When are they revealing Caleb's number 13 Heisman banner at the Coliseum? Homecoming or after he leaves SC, or waiting to see if he wins a potential second Heisman? I have no idea, actually.
That would be the biggest flex. Like,
waiting to see if he wins another one.
We didn't do it because we knew the second one was coming.
Yeah. So, I mean, TBD, I would assume, and this is, again, we know nothing. I'm just guessing. I'm assuming it would be after he leaves to put it up there. And if there is another Heisman, maybe to see if there's his number times 2 or however they would do. I don't even know how they would do that. But yeah, I mean, that's a great question, David. I have no idea. So stay tuned for that. And hopefully there is another one. We'll see.
Alrighty. We got to do game predictions.
We do got to do game predictions.
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, you want to go first this time?
Sure.
I thought you're already ready. You're normally waiting for me.
No. I am not ready at all.
Oh, okay.
I'm using this time to now think of football numbers. I did think a little bit on my drive to work today about this. I'm going to say 42-3.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going. No, it's good. I'm going 63-7.
Wow. Okay.
That is mine. I'm going.
Did you have that prepped?
I figured. I'm giving them one touchdown maybe. Play on the safe side. Give them a touchdown. I think we're easily going to put up 60+ this game.
That's fair.
So I'm going 63-7.
Okay. Well, we actually have separation. We haven't had a lot of separation.
Yeah, this is good.
Yeah.
Not with ASU score, but with SC score. So this is where we can kind of distance ourselves this week.
Yes.
But we don't have the tally up. I think you are beating me pretty bad through the first 3 weeks.
Really?
I think you're 3-0.
I mean, I have us on the money.
Yeah, you do have it on the money, which
I
probably
feel like should count for like 2.
It should.
Okay.
But we'll keep that tally up. We'll keep everyone updated soon.
Yes. We'll get an update.
Okay. With that being said, though, I'm doing my outro that you didn't let me do last week. For those of you
I do apologize.
who may remember, but again, been so much fun covering USC football. This next 9-week stretch is going to be awesome. Going to be a lot of fun to cover. Some big time games. I can't wait for the prep of those.
So
Obviously, got to
excited.
handle business in Tempe this week. But again, for all our new listeners, everyone that's been a constant listener, we love you guys. Thank you so much. Fight on, and I am out. We'll see you next week.
Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up. Like I mentioned, no podcast on Sunday. So, Cody, you and I will be back on Wednesday to talk about this ASU game and preview Colorado. So make sure you stay tuned to that. Again, as always, thanks for listening. We appreciate you guys. That's Cody. I'm Keely. We'll see y'all next time.